Hi, Wildling. Hey, I'm still looking for some more interesting guests on European herbalism and foraging. So if you know anybody that would want to be a guest in my podcast series, please feel free to reach out and contact me through social media, Wild Plant Forager, or through my website, wildplantforager.com. Thank you so much. Welcome to Wild, the podcast for wildlings just like you. Wildlings who want to transform the prevalent plant blindness to collective plant wisdom. My name is Lieve Galle. I've been working as a herbalist and wild plant forager in Belgium since 2002. In those years, I've seen a lot of changes. Working with plants has become more popular, but I've also seen time is running out for our planet. As foragers and herbalists in Europe, sometimes we're dealing with different plant species and different cultural approaches towards plants. In some countries, working with plants is licensed, and in others, it's almost illegal. I believe that together we can learn from one another and be stronger. There is nothing more empowering than connecting wild souls. Together, we can have a greater impact on restoring the ancient link between people and plants. And that's why, for this podcast series, I'm talking to fellow herbalists and foragers in Europe. So if you're ready to find out what you've never been told, but what your soul already knows, welcome to Wild. Welcome, Wildy. Today I'm here with Isabel Openshaw. Isa, right? Am I
Yeah.
saying that right? Okay. So you are a forager, you work at Kew Gardens, you're also guiding people on medicinal plant walks. Please tell us a little bit about how your journey with the plants got started. Was it something you learned from your parents or grandparents, or was it more a thing that you initiated yourself?
Yeah. So I think I've always loved spending time outside, and I was lucky in my childhood to spend quite a lot of time outside. Um, but the foraging that I did as a child was kind of just the standard foraging that most people do, which is going to the blackberry bushes, or on the dead nettles, taking the little flowers and sucking the nectar out of them. Um, but my grandmother, she was very into gardening, which definitely inspired me to get into gardening. And my mother also was into foraging along the for elder and making cordial. And and it wasn't until one time when she accidentally fermented it that I was like, I'm going to on purpose ferment this. And then really got it connected to the elder. I was like, it really kind of unlocked all of these possibilities of that elders got such a treasure trove for medicinal properties, not only for the flowers, which are great for cold and flu, and a diaphoretic and a diuretic. So yeah, stimulating sweat and urine respectively to flush out toxins, but then also in the autumn time when the berries come and they're perfect for the flu season. And so yeah, I think it was a combination of inspiration from yeah, my grandmother and my mother, but also it was really elder that unlocked the world of medicinal plants for me. Um and then yeah, I got into thinking about what else was out there. And then yeah, alongside that, um I was also trying to steer my studies more towards plants as well. Because I always did geography and then maths for my undergrad, and then applied that to the rainforest of North Borneo for a research project. Then I did a master's in ecology and had a research project on ectomycorrhizal fungi at Kew. And now, yeah, I'm at Kew, still at Kew, researching forests for the time being.
Lovely and really interesting. It's an interesting story about the accidental fermentation. Was there an explosion?
There definitely were a couple of mini explosions along the way. It sounds like a gunshot going off in the house when the cork pops, and for people not unfamiliar with this sound, that they're like, "What is that going off in the house?" And I'm like, "Don't worry, it's just the elderflowers."
So, as a forager, how frequently do you go out foraging, and what are your favorite places to go foraging?
Yeah, so I actually so Kew Gardens is based in London, where I'm living at the moment, but I don't really like to forage in London because I only like to forage where there's an abundance for wildlife as well as us as well. And say like nettles are one of my favorite things to forage as well, and they accumulate heavy metals, which is also not good to do in a heavily polluted area. So it's just on the weekends, and it's not like I try and go like every other weekend, um, and I'll just go to the outskirts of London really, just on the train, and because we really don't need that much to sustain ourselves for the year, and so yeah.
Right. I really love your answer because a lot of people, like my students, they have really high standards and they really think they're only a real foraging if they go out foraging every single day. And it doesn't need to be like that. You can just go with the flow and do what works for you and your individual situation, I think, and the surroundings where you are. And yeah, I think it's really important that it fits for every person, how you forage and when you forage and how frequently and how often you forage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely quite a time-consuming commitment to do, and definitely, I want to honor the plants and fungi that I bring home, and by preserving them well, or at least having the time to process them as soon as I get back. But yeah, I definitely do like my preservation, because many of the plants and fungi is only available at one time of year, so it's pretty, yeah, essential to be able um, to preserve them, to have them year round.
Yes, and it's right that you have to calculate the preserving time also in your foraging time. I think it's better to pick like once a week and then be able to preserve it than to pick every day and then just leaving it somewhere to wilt or to go bad. It's just a shame of all the plants or the fungi you picked, really.
Definitely. But I think, yeah, when I got into foraging, and if I've taken the time to go out there, connect with nature, I'm so much more grateful for the gifts that I've been given, and I definitely want to um savor what I have and what I've got, because yeah, sometimes I don't know if you've also heard of like this meditation, the raisin meditation. When I first got into meditation, this was an example, and you take first raisin and you experience it through your different senses, and then you take the second raisin, and you imagine everything that it took to get this raisin to where you are today, from the water that touched the seed and helped it grow, and all the people that took it to get there, and once you think about all of the energy that went into that, you're so much more grateful for the food. And yeah, I think definitely, connecting with the life cycle of where our food comes from always makes us more appreciative.
Yes, totally, totally. I still see everything I pick as a treasure. Even after 20 years of foraging, it's still like a treasure for me. And I will never take it for granted. And I see a lot of people that do take it for granted. And it kind of bothers me because really you have to see the whole picture, everything that is involved, from the seed to whatever it is that you're picking, or from the spore to the mushroom you're picking. And yes, it's kind of the miracle of life that you're just involved in, and that you are, um yes, it's like a privilege to be able to pick it and to use it and to get nourished by it on different levels.
Yeah, and how I said, I also feel like it relates to a connection with our ancestors, not only from maybe inspiration into getting into foraging, but also it reminds us what life used to be like as a hunter gatherer, and how much more connected we were with the plants, um, and that definitely creates a sense of awe as well.
Yes, yes, I agree. So, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because for me as a Belgian herbalist and forager, the UK sometimes seems like a herbal paradise.
Oh, really?
Yes, there are so many foragers from the UK. There is a high standard of education at herbalism schools. There is even licensed medical herbalism. That's just like a dream, uh, for the Belgian situation. It's so drastically different. Here in Belgium, there is not even a thing as a licensed herbalist. It's not a thing. And so, what I'm wondering is what effect this has on the general public, as in, how accessible is herbal medicine? Is it frowned upon? Is it a niche thing? Or is it an accepted and respected choice?
I think it's definitely gaining popularity, and ever since lockdown, there was a really big upheaval in foraging, which kind of leads to herbalism as well. Um, but I still do think it is quite a niche thing, um, but it is gaining popularity. Um, definitely, I think it's very interesting and great to hear that there's so many courses out there, because um, some of the quite a lot of the time, with the at least with the master's courses, I hear that there's quite a lot of them that are being pulled from the universities due to lack of popularity, or I don't know. I'm very skeptical that the pharmaceutical companies are in there somewhere, um, because I know that like there's quite a lot of censorship that's coming, at least coming from online at the moment, which is kind of scary. But definitely, I think. But yeah, I did a little bit of traveling earlier this year. This very early on in the year, last month, and it did make me very much appreciative of the amount of research actually that we have to our herbs that we use. So contrasting this to like tropical herbs, I think there is so much more research into them, and that is due to the popularity from the people driving this research. Um, so yeah, that is really great to see. And yeah, I think I like while I think it is normal, it is getting more normal. Um, the norm for healthcare is still the NHS, which is great, but they don't, in the NHS, they don't consider this um, holistic health approach enough, and I definitely wish there was more just consideration for herbalism, and that is an option. But I think our whole healthcare system has kind of taught us that the doctors are there to tell us what's wrong with us, and then they'll provide something to heal ourselves. But with herbalism, it's a much more of we know our bodies best. We're everyone's different, and we need to take our health into our own hands to be able to heal ourselves. So it's quite a contrasting framework, definitely. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying, because yes, I think there is a lot of room for progress when it comes to complementary medicine. So where you have an integration of the herbal medicine in the regular medicine, or just that you use it to yeah, for instance, there are countries where you can have a chemotherapy therapy for your cancer, but then you can go to the herbalist to make you less troubled with nausea, with lack of energy. And I think that's also a beautiful model to have in the world. Yes, and I also hear what you're saying about the power of the pharmaceutical companies, which are, well, they're very powerful here in Belgium. Because I heard you saying the herbalist courses at the universities. Did you really say that? So you can take herbal classes at universities?
Yes, certain universities you can. It's within their masters. It's there's one called herbology. I know. There's also ethnobotanical studies as well. But I think they are reducing in their numbers.
So I know that there was a way that you could study at the University of Antwerp. Actually, there was you could you could follow classes for natural medicine, but this was like, yes, I think it's since ages it has been just deleted from
Mm.
their offerings. So yes, I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done there. I think we can agree on that one. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, no, and definitely, yeah. I think also coming back to when people choose to go down the herbalism route within the UK, I do often feel like it's a last resort for many people, and that's why they turn to herbalism. It's often for long-term diseases that they're struggling to find help with, and then turn to herbalism and realize that it's help for the long term.
yes, and actually, it should be the first resort. I think. So often people come to me and they ask. Yes, I'm at my wit's end. I have tried the cortisones, and I have tried the antibiotics, and I've tried, and then they're naming all kinds of therapies that actually are harming the body, or like antibiotics, they really destroy the intestinal flora. So I think, what would have happened if you just used the herbs first, and then maybe if they don't work good enough, you could have tried some other options. But yes, I would like to see that happening, that people have this general knowledge so that they can just um, use herbs as a first aid thing, as a first remedy, as a first option, and then transition to other options if it's needed. But yeah, that would be
Definitely.
lovely.
And they definitely do have this in other cultures where it's the first point of call, and we have it to a certain extent, on small things, like having a sore throat, and a lemon and honey tea, that's quite a common thing. um but but yeah, definitely not for eczema has been a little bit of, and psoriasis has been a bit of an issue at the moment with the cold weather. We had a cold spell last week, and yeah, I think that hydrocortisol it's just the first point of call that pharmacists will recommend. But there's so many different oils that you can have, and such as calendula oil, which is my favorite one to use, and because it's antibacterial, antifungal, and that's what our skin is craving when it's dry, the oils. But people are also confused. They think that putting oils on their face is going to cause them to have spots, when it's not quite the case. Our skin needs oil. And then with antibiotics, it's so silly because everyone knows we're in an antibiotics crisis, yet the doctors are so quick to prescribe them. And then if you're prescribed them by the doctor, then most people will take them. You have to really put your foot down, which is what I do, and I'm like, no, I don't need them, to be able to heal different things.
Yes, right. And how is the average botanical knowledge of the people in the UK? And do you see a difference geographically, like that it's more of a common skill in more remote areas, like in the countryside, and less so in the cities? Or how is that?
Yeah, I think definitely, and it definitely makes sense if you're living out in the countryside. Then plants are more of way of life, than in the cities. People are like definitely more disconnected. Um, I'm not sure regionally across the country, um, but definitely, um, in more remote places, um, then it will be common to go along the hedgerows and collect the from the common things to hawthorn and rose hips, as well as sloes. And I think we're also taught sometimes to be quite wary of these plants, such as nettles. Like, everyone's got a story of how they fell in them as a child, um, and the only thing that people know that we do with them really is to have nettle soup, which doesn't sound so appealing, although it's actually great. I love putting nettles in soup, in soup, but I don't necessarily make it just a nettle soup. I'll be like, I'm making a vegetable soup, and then just throw some other nettles in
Mhm.
there. So yeah, people are definitely aware, but there could be room for improvement, of the uses of the oil, or how of the different plants.
Yeah, and one of the things that really fascinates me as a forager is the concept of the commons, which is a word that is connected to the word community. So, for the people who don't know this, the commons, it's a concept that goes back to the Middle Ages historically. And these are places that belong to the community where you could go foraging, graze your animals, pick mushrooms. What are your ideas on this? Is there like a place for the commons in the future?
Um, just for places where you go and forage. See, I think that would be beautiful and great. But at least here across the UK, there's just so much farming land, and it feels like all of our countryside is mainly farmland, and not enough green spaces and wild spaces. Although there are a lot of rewilding projects going on, and then there's also some protected areas which you're obviously not allowed to forage on, and obviously everyone goes to the supermarkets, which I'm actually trying to quit supermarkets at the
Yes.
moment. I get my veg box, and I buy some of my dry foods from like some Whole Foods shops online, um, and I am feeling much better for it. I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think foraging is also a very subversive thing to do, because you don't need the food supply system as it is today. You don't need it's it's the system, the industrial system of agriculture that we have today that is actually damaging the planet more, I think.
Definitely. And and within that system, yeah, we have such a problem of food waste as well from that system. And so, but yeah, coming back to what we said at the start, foraging makes you so much more grateful for the gifts.
Yes, and there's also this personal relationship with your food, which is different than going to the supermarket and just buying some anonymous food, because you don't know where it came from, who grew it, what the plant looked like before. Like, there are so many people who do not know what a cauliflower plant or a bean plant looks like, and how these plants grow and what they need. And yes, so foraging really gives us this personal relationship with our food and with nature. And I think that's essential for the future, actually, to have this relationship with, and to realize how much we are part of an ecosystem instead of being outside of it.
Definitely. I think, we have been on this path of disconnection for too long. And it actually did start, I think it did start with the agricultural revolution that we started, taking these plants and seeing them all as commodities, and just wiping fields clear and only planting one crop in the fields. And we by doing this, are kind of slowly taking ourselves out of the food chain. And I knew that we were on this path of disconnection, but I didn't realize how deep rooted in our language it was until I was reading Braiding Sweetgrass.
Yeah.
And to the Potawatomi tribe, they refer to all living things as beings, whereas in English, we anything that isn't a human, maybe a pet, is an it. And that really struck a chord with me, because our language is so important, and which shapes our way of thinking. Thinking that we're outside of the food chain and we're not nature, whereas definitely foraging brings us back to that, and makes us appreciate the seasons so much more, which is what pagans and we probably did before we had Christianity come in, and us, and we were honoring the seasons, which it's today is symbolic, which marks the start of spring. um, which is a great way to look forward to the year ahead. I mean, it's still a pretty harsh winter at the moment, or it's not too bad in London, really.
Well, here the snowdrops just popped up. They're starting to bloom, not entirely yet, but they're starting. So yes.
Yeah, we've even got some crocuses out as well.
Nice.
The snowdrops, which is
So
definitely exciting.
I also want to talk with you about your work at Kew Gardens. Can you tell us a little bit more about your job there? What exactly it is that you are doing?
So I've always, in my studies, kind of been researching forests, ecosystems, and at the moment I'm looking at how much carbon is stored in the trees across the UK, and that's mainly focused on above ground in the trees, and trying to get our estimates better, because they're reliant quite a lot on forestry estimates, which are not that accurate. But then also, I work closely with our mycorrhizal department, and they're looking at in synergy with our above ground team, that's what's happening beneath the soil, as well as how much the soil respires as well. So I'm also going to be trying to look to see what correlations there are between the above ground carbon and the below ground.
That's some really interesting research. Yes.
Um, yeah, no, it's definitely good, and I'm lucky that I get to do some field work as well. So I think that's really important to tangible links to what we're studying, because I do quite a lot of coding in my day to day. So need to have a go at touching the trees as well, and um, yeah.
Yeah. So what I find really interesting about Kew Gardens is that they do a lot more than just being the Royal Botanical Gardens. There's a rather interesting article on their website that I found on using artificial intelligence in the digitization project of the 8 million, and that is just a mind blowing number, the 8 million herbarium species, in particular to find out if a species has been misidentified. I
Hmm.
found that so fascinating. And another new citizen science project that they're involved in is asking people of Britain and Ireland about ethno-veterinary knowledge, the knowledge of how plants and fungi can treat illness in animals. And I love how it mentions this. They say this knowledge could be used to help develop novel biodegradable medicines for animal health and reduce the excess use of veterinary pharmaceuticals, which is causing enormous damage to our soils and insect populations, and slowly leading to the rise of anti-parasitic and antibiotic resistance in serious diseases. That is so interesting. How do you see the role of botanical gardens in the 21st century?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so important, because one of Key's slogans at the moment is like our future is botanic, and that's something that I truly believe, that we do need to look to the. And I mean, and I get this when I'm foraging as well. When I spending time in nature, um, you learn so many different lessons, because you can take so many different lessons from nature and be able to apply them in our life, and remembering that we are part of nature. Such as, if I think I'm foraging from one place too much, maybe I'll get a bit prickled by the thorns, and I'm like, oh, that's enough from this place. I'll have to move on now. um, but also, yeah, it can be used in so many different metaphors for our own lives. So I definitely think that research into plants and fungi is so important, and yeah, it's a shame that we're at Kew are always looking for more funding for all of our projects, because that's what we rely on, and I think, yeah, we just need more interest into plants and fungi to be able to fund all this crucial research into, yeah, our digitalization project, which is, yeah, helping to um, get an online catalog, because many of the specimens are just all they're just dried copies, and then yeah, that so I don't know too much about that, the veterinary research, but it sounds so interesting, um yeah, definitely so important. I mean because we have so many cattle, and actually, I heard something interesting from speaking to a farmer, that that they have medical fields. So not only to separate sick animals and put them in the medical fields, but they'll grow lots of different herbs in those fields, and the animals will self-medicate and choose which herbs are going to heal them, which I think is so cool, and it also makes me think that we probably have used to be able to sense this so much better, um, and but obviously it's got quite far away from that. um,
Yes, it also makes me think about like horses, the wild horses. It's such a robust animal, and it really generally has a very strong health, but then you have the domesticated horses that are just, well, they need just around the right kind of food, and they need just, but it's because they're in a meadow all the time and they're contained and they cannot go a few kilometers just to find the specific medicinal plant that they may need. I think it has a lot to do with that. And yes, it's interesting to think about how we instinctively could just find our medicinal herbs, and now it's more of a knowledge thing. You have to know how to identify the plants, how to extract the right amount of nutrients or of chemical compounds that are in them. Um, yes, I find it really interesting to think about it, how it used to be just our instincts and how far we have come from that.
Mm. I mean, I think definitely we do have a certain amount of that in us. I mean, I know that I mean, I don't drink that much anymore, but in my teenage years, I used to get hungover and crave spinach, and it was probably because the iron content, and we do have certain cravings that come through, and so I think it is something that we could potentially tap into if we just check in with our bodies more, and yeah.
Yeah, I believe that too. I believe that too. But I was also wondering, like Kew Gardens is quite different than the wild outdoors where you go foraging. It's more kept, it's more, structural. How is it for you to live and work in these two different places?
Um, I definitely think it could be more wild, because I like more wild areas, but I understand it's got quite, lots of history relating to the royal family, and they want royal gardens, and our horticulture team do such a good job of keeping the gardens well kept. There is a little area of a woodland walk towards the back, which is slightly more wild. And then we've also got another site, Wakehurst in East Sussex, and that's definitely it's nicknamed like Kew's Country Garden, and it's definitely a lot more wild, open spaces, and forested areas, which is lovely to walk around, and you can bring dogs there now, to Wakehurst, which is pretty cool as well. But yeah, I think that the level of upkeep is also so good, and it's so important because going around the gardens, it's all about learning and identifying these different plants. And so, to be fair, if there's lots of weeds in there, then I'm gonna get confused about which sign is for which plant. So yeah, I think it's such a great place to walk around where the focus is on the plants.
Nice. All right. So, one of the things that happens here in Belgium, and I don't know how it is in the UK, if one works with herbs, people generally will tell this person, well, hey, you are pretty lucky to live in today's world because in the past you would have definitely be burned. And it bothers me because it gives a sense of privilege. Whereas in reality, I think there is a lot of reclaiming and activism work to be done in the area of herbalism. So I'm wondering, did someone ever say a similar thing to you?
Definitely, yeah, I definitely do get that quite a lot. Um, but yeah, I think it's definitely important, to realize that that happened, and there's quite a good documentary, not documentary, a podcast on BBC Sounds called The Witch, and that goes through the history of the witch trials, and and it's really important because I think it was kind of that whole scenario was a way of ostracizing just women, because I think women were specifically targeted, and how that has impacted us today. So our role was then, well, we were kind of made to feel a bit inferior, or fear of like treading out and stepping out, because it was traditionally it's like older women that were targeted as well, for being too independent, and for yeah for and so I definitely think it's really important that we recognize that maybe why women today are slightly more reserved, and that may have been because we we were persecuted for stepping out of line, um, and yeah, and it definitely also reigns true for that we were persecuted in our connection with plants.
Yes, what I find interesting to see is how you also mentioned it, that in the UK the world of herbalism, of plant knowledge is growing. People are getting more interested in this, and I'm wondering how this will evolve, because right now I have the impression that when it comes to things like herbal medicine, well, in Belgium, it's not really legal to practice herbal medicine, but I also feel that we should be braver than we are today. We are just being nice and following the government rules, but we could also be a little bit more activistic about it and just trying to reclaim
Mm.
the right to practice our profession, really. So yeah, and I think that has to do with what you're mentioning, that we're still being reserved, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the way to bring that forward is, um, I mean, I used to think that, there are many of our issues are on a global scale or national scale, and we need to tackle them at those scales. But after this past year, I've definitely I've connected with a lot of different communities who are doing really great stuff, and they're all from grassroots and from just small communities. And I think that is definitely the way that we can bring about change in it, and it kind of makes sense in like these like small ecosystems, if you will, of communities, and that starts with your friends and family, and then reaching out to other people, and I think yeah, that's definitely a way of taking back control that we can.
Yes, yes. I feel pretty much the same about that. Yes. I think real change comes from small things that start growing organically. And I can also see it happening that, well, I remember when I was graduating as a herbalist, yeah, maybe we were with 2 or 3 people in our year. And now the first year of the herbalism schools are just fully booked. There are so many people who want to become a herbalist, or if I look at my classes, so many people who want to become a forager. And I can see people doing small acts of rebellion. And I really like that, because that is how change is initiated, by small acts of rebellion. Yeah,
Hmm. No, definitely.
that's interesting. If you, yeah. So, how can people find out more about your work? Do you have like a website, a social media account, where if people want to know more about you, where they find information?
Yeah, I've just got an Instagram, so it's Iza dot herbal remedies, um, and yeah, where I'm trying to post about little, forages that I find along the way, and teachings that I have, but yeah, it's kind of just um learning with me, because there's, once you get into foraging, and herbalism, you realize it's a lifetime of knowledge, to learn, so yeah, and then yeah, we've also got some information on the Q page as well, but yeah, me directly is on the Instagram, so
Right. And I agree, it is a never-ending story. It's like a rabbit hole. Once you once you get into herbs, it's I have been working with herbs for more than 20 years, and it's still like an ongoing process. You just keep learning, and having new experiences and exchanging experiences with other people and finding out new things. And then there is some new scientific research about some plants. And so, yes, this is the part of my work that I really like, that I never will get to the level, oh, now I know everything there is to know about plants, because it would get boring, and it just keeps exciting me. And I love that. I really totally love that about my job. Yeah.
No, definitely. It's always finding out new things, and yeah. But I've been trying to, simplify my life. I mean, maybe it's the whole spring cleaning coming in, but we really don't need that many. When you do get into herbalism, you're like, oh wow, there's so many different herbs that I can use, and you want to learn them all. But I think I've kind of been realizing recently that we really don't need that many, and that there's so many different actions that just one herb has, and it's like getting to know. It's like having a few good friends versus lots of acquaintances, and your good friend of 10, 15 years can still surprise you, and you can realize, oh, like I can use, rose hips are actually quite demulcent, or can be used in that way, which I didn't realize until recently. So yeah.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with that. And it's nice to have some really long-term herbal friends to rely on, plants that keep coming back to you and just helping you out whenever you need it. So yes, that's nice. So Isa, thank you so much for this engaging conversation. And to you, Wildy, that has been listening, thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you back with our next episode. In the meantime, keep nourishing your wild soul and keep powdering your nose with dandelion pollen. Bye.
A warm thank you for listening, Wildy. Are you feeling a wild itch after this episode? Well, just head over to wildplantforager.com and feel free to connect with me on social media. I'm looking forward to the next episode. I hope you'll be there. But for now, just go outside and follow your wild heart.